What's up, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Touchdown Texas. I'm your host, Shiva Patel, and my co-host here, Nick Rodriguez. Texas dominates Sam Houston State 55 to 0. What a game last night. Nick, how you feeling, man?
Feeling great, man. Feeling great. Ready to get into it. Excited. Some positive news coming out of Texas football. So very, very, very excited.
Definitely. So before we get started, be sure to follow us on our social media channels at touchdown_Texas. And be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channels. We'll starting the Florida game, we'll start doing TikTok lives before the game, at halftime, and after the game. Yesterday, the game was on ESPN Plus. We were not able to get on, but definitely we're going to be doing it more going forward. So let's talk about a guy that's received a lot of national attention over the last week, Arch Manning. What a bounce back game for him.
Oh, for sure.
5 touchdowns total, 3 through the air, 2 through the ground. Give him a rating, even though I think I know where you're going to stand on this.
Oh, it's got to be an A++. I think what we talked about last night, he got a swagger back, right? He did everything he was supposed to do. You know, he looked efficient. He didn't look rushed with his passes. And again, like we're talking about Sam Houston State, right? This is not a team that it was not supposed to be close. We were favored by 40 points, 41, in that range. So, yeah, we were supposed to win big, but we did. That's the important part. We looked good. We did the part that we were supposed to do. And a lot of that is the defense, and a lot of that is Mr. Manning. And he finally felt like he came out of it. And I think that's what you see right here, this picture that she was showing. If you're listening and not on YouTube, he, runs it for the touchdown. We go 14-0 at this point, and he mean mugs the guy. He's like amped up. And he said afterwards, like, I think it was just all the frustration over the last few weeks. And you could tell. I mean, that's what it is. It's less about Sam Houston State and more about, oh my God, I'm not playing to my abilities right now, even though we're winning. And finally, things started to click, and we looked like who we thought we would from day one, with a big win over Sam Houston State.
Definitely. And me and Nick, those of you that watched our episode last week, we were critical of Arch Manning, rightfully so. But we have to give the man his props. 10 pluses. He was 18 of 21. I wanted to see an efficient Arch Manning. Like I said, 3 touchdowns. He was amazing. It started on the first drive of the game. So, of course, we stopped Sam Houston State. Colin Simmons got his first sack. We'll talk about the defense going in a little bit. Mm-hmm. So the Texans' first possession, they had a 3rd and 9. And I was thinking a little bit, me and Nick were watching it together, like, like they struggled in 3rd and 9 situation. What does Arch Manning do? Steps up and throws a laser to DeAndre Moore. Right. Welcome, DeAndre Moore.
Huge.
And then later in the drive, he throws a nice 16-yard screen pass to Christian Clark. And then he throws a little out route to Parker Livingstone. 3 huge completions. And then Jarrett Gibson, baby Rhino, first touchdown of 2025.
Yeah.
He goes in and scores a touchdown. And from there, I was officially like, this offense is back. I know it's against Sam Houston State, but the opponent doesn't matter. We have to play to the Texas standard, and they played that way yesterday. I love the Arch to Ryan Wingo connection. He threw a beautiful post route to Ryan Wingo, dropped it right in the bucket. Mm-hmm. Ryan Wingo even was celebrating. You could see Ryan Wingo got a swagger back a little bit too, because I think he saw some of these other wide receivers, a Jeremiah Smith, a Ryan Williams, a Cam Coleman yesterday, and he was like, I belong in that same sentence, the same breadth of those other guys. Let me show out for that game. Also threw a touchdown pass to Jordan Washington, a backup tight end. And he threw 2 touchdown passes to Ryan Wingo, a beautiful slant pass. Arch Manning was stepping up in the pocket. His footwork was incredible. He was throwing it with a lot of zip, a lot of mustard. He was trusting his reads. He knew when to run, knew when to pass. He is back. You can tell that he is ready for SEC play. So let's talk about the offense as a whole, Nick. What do you think about the performance yesterday, non-Arch Manning related?
I mean, I still think it's an A+. I think everything was extremely efficient. You talked about Demo. He ate and did well. Ryan Wingo, started to look more like Ryan Wingo with Arch being on the same page. We talked about last week how they kept missing each other. The running backs, we just got to get healthy. I think that's big for our two main guys, CJ Baxter and Trey Wisner. They didn't play or they didn't play much. But the other guys look good. So I think across the board, it's an A+ for everybody because, and again, we'll keep saying it the entire episode is that, it's Sam Houston State. It's not A&M. It's not OU. Yeah, you're not going to drum most SC teams like that. Right. We know that. But again, this is what people were clamoring for, right? You look kind of ugly against Ohio State, but you say, okay, this is the number one team in the country, probably the best defense outside of Texas and maybe Penn State. So it's okay it's okay. Like people were making excuses, and then you look pretty putrid against really lower, less competition. So it's nice to see that this is what you're supposed to do, and this is when you would rather have it, right? You would rather have it right now than in week 2. And then you have the dreadful game. So it looks like it's picking up. I think everything was good. I think there's still a couple throws. And look, I'm being really picky with Arch here that we're a little bit behind, but most throws were on the freaking money. That one that you talked about where Wingo goes deep on that post, you could not throw it any better. Remind me of yours to Xavier Worthy throw against Alabama, which was like right over the shoulder. So everyone gets an A+. I thought Sark did a good job. And watching it, Sam Houston State was there in a lot of plays. We just have the better athletes. And we're better, we're more well coached and well rounded like that. So bye week coming up, get ready for Florida. Florida, I think, will be a tough task just because, they are 1-3. They're desperate and they've been in a lot of these ball games. Just couldn't able to get it done. But I think this gets his swagger back. I think he finally is like, oh my God, finally, I can breathe a sigh of relief.
For sure. And this is how you want to go into a bye week, because if they struggled, the next 2 weeks would have been miserable for Texas, miserable for Sark. Talking about the offense in general, the running backs, they looked good. And these are our backup running backs. Kristen Clark had 62 yards, I believe, on 13 carries. And then Jarrett Gibson had 11 carries for 53 yards. Both running backs had a touchdown. So the running game looked really good. They started to get the rhythm back going again. Offensive line was pushing people. There was no dumb penalties that they were committing, like DJ Campbell. And so they were playing very smart, fundamental football, opening up rushing lanes for the running backs. I love the aggressiveness that the running backs were running with. They were playing angry. They were breaking tackles. They were finding the holes. The running game is going to be the key. And like Sark was, offering, Arch Manning the RPO options, because he needs to get more comfortable, because that will really open up Sark's offense. I gave the stat last week that Arch was not very good at RPOs, play action, but he's really good at straight drop back passes. Well, I like Sark was incorporating the RPO game a little bit more, because that's what we're going to need against SEC opponents. Arch made the right decisions. He was throwing the ball in the right places. The wide receivers were really helping him out. I don't think separating. Separating. I don't think I saw any drops. Maybe there was 1 or 2, but
he had 3 incompletions, so there couldn't have been many.
Exactly.
Just extremely, extremely efficient. Over 300 yards, no turnovers, which is not. Again, not what we've seen the last basically month, or the first month of the season is what we haven't seen from him.
No, for sure. And Ryan Wingo, 93 yards, 2 touchdowns on 4 catches. DeAndre Moore, 79 yards. I actually like the fact that they played DeAndre Moore this game. They could have given him 2 more weeks off and played him against Florida. But sometimes, even though he's a junior, you don't want your first game back against a team that's desperate like Florida. You want DeAndre Moore to get his feet wet in the pool before he has to go play against the Florida Gators. And it's different for a wide receiver than it is a running back. Like Trey Wisner, he could easily come back and be ready to play against Florida. I'm not ready. I'm not, worried about Trey Wisner. I still think, ladies and gentlemen, he's the best running back in the SEC. And I've watched pretty much all the teams so far. So that is key. Hopefully we get Emmett Mosley back against Florida, because, Sark said last week is that he's progressing. So I don't know if progressing means he's almost ready to play, or progressing means that he's just now getting ending the rehab and getting better. We don't know that. So
Yeah.
we need to get healthy. But Parker Livingstone is still playing really well, making great catches. He's been a fan favorite because he can block, he can pass, and he can catch the ball as well as block. And I just love the efficiency of the offense and taking care of business against Sam Houston State. Nick, do you have any other final thoughts about the offense before we move on to the defense?
Only thing I was going to say is that, like, about DeAndre Moore, and you were saying it's good that he played. I agree, because if the offense was doing this, since the first game of the season, since Labor Day, I think he probably sits, right? But you needed everybody that was available to play to put on a show, to be able to go, okay, we're all on the same page. We haven't been doing this. We've been kind of squeaking by inferior opponents. We need to like be all on the same page and put it together before we go at Florida. So I think it was good. He played a great game, and now he's got even more confidence. And that is the last thing that the Gators want. The question is, with Florida, are they going to be like dead man walking? Are they still going to be scary, or are they just going to like lie down? Like that's the interesting with Florida at this point, because their season is basically over in terms of a playoff. But they can be ruiner, and see what happens. It's still going to be a battle, but no, offense was off the charts finally. And it was great to see. It was a lot of fun to watch.
It was. And before we move on to the defense, they had 343 passing yards, 264 rushing yards, equaling 607 total yards. They were 7-11 on third down. Again, very impressive. And you'd love to see that. They did have 9 penalties for 70 yards. I forgot to say that. But they weren't killer penalties where, like, oh my God, that's going to hurt us. They weren't at all. So we just need to clean that up a little bit. It's fine. We're playing a lot of young guys. Our main guys are not there. So we'll be better on that. And I liked it that we forced a turnover. Jelani McDonald had an interception on the Sam Houston State quarterback. So let's talk about the defense now. Nick, like I said, Colin Simmons is on the board. 1 sack already. And Anthony Hill also had a good game. Secondary looked good. What grade would you give the defense, Leslie?
It's another A+. I mean, for me, it's A+ all around. Everyone looked good, even the special teams. We kicked a few field goals. I think that was good as well. Just like, it's like in basketball. See the ball goes through the net. Like, I think you just need to see that. Same with Colin Sims. Like, get a sack. I think it's good. Again, we shut him out. I mean, it's hard to be much better than a shutout. Force the ball, force the turnovers. The interception at the end of the first half was insane. He jumps up real high to snag that one. Again, I'm saying this for like the 4th time. They're overmatched, right? They're not supposed to be in this game. This is what you're supposed to do. If you're an elite team, you're supposed to put them away, right? We've seen other teams that were ranked really high struggle with these kinds of matchups, not just Texas. Like, Clemson's had their struggles. Like, they had a battle with Troy. So, like, teams can hang around, especially in this NIL era, and you want to need to put them away as soon as possible. If you watch our previous episode, this is exactly what we talked about on our wish list for this week. Put them away. Put them away. Don't make us stress about it. Let me be able to put my phone down. Let me be able to turn the TV off. Let me put the game on something else because we're up by so much. And that's exactly what happened. And part of that is the defense can be so freaking suffocating, right? This defense has been A+ really throughout the entire season, even in Ohio State, right, where they've scored 2 touchdowns, right? And they were pretty fluke-ish. One was on that 4th and goal, and one he dropped it and then caught it again. So they've been phenomenal. They're just going to get better and better. And I think they're pissed off. They're angry. The offense finally, rose as well. So I think this is just more positive news coming out of Texas football and a buzz that we needed, like you said, going into the bye week. You want to have a happy, good buzz before you go into that bye week, fix the things that went wrong, and then get after it for the rest of the season.
I've been so impressed with this defense. They are the best in the country, I believe, because of just the tenacity, just the playmakers that we have. I love the character of this defense because you know how sometimes when the team culture is not that well, the defense will look side-eyed at the offense? No, they never look side-eyed at the offense. They've always just stuck to their game, played their game plan. They are tenacious. They were rushing the passer yesterday. Like the Sam Houston quarterback had no time at all. We even had guys like our freshmen get sacks, and Lance Jackson had a sack. Brad Spence, the transfer from Arkansas, had a sack. Smith the Rogbo, another true freshman, had a sack. that just shows you the depth and versatility of this defense. They were kept blitzing. They were creating havoc on Sam Houston State. They didn't let them establish a run. I love the turnover by Jelani McDonald. He just came in, showed his athleticism, and got the interception. This defense has been playing at such a high level. They've been the reason that I think we're going to continue to be ranked as high because they've kept us in a lot of these games, especially Ohio State. And
exactly.
They're going to carry that into SEC play. And now you can see also, I think the key of this episode is swagger. You can see Colin Simmons get a swagger back a little bit too. Because, after he got that, because he's a guy that's a very confident guy, but, he was close to getting sacks the previous weeks. I don't want to say that he's been playing bad. He's not at all. The other quarterbacks like the UTEP and San Jose State, they've been getting the ball out with less than 2 seconds after they snap the ball. So as the defender, it's really hard to even make an impact to get to the quarterback. Yeah. Well, I didn't understand Sam Houston State's game plan, letting their quarterback drop back. Then that let us eat our defenders. And Anthony Hill also, he was all over the field. Our secondary, Michael Taft, excellent tackling skills. Derek Williams, he flashed as well. This defense is going to be really hard to move the ball against in SEC play, and they're going to feast off of DJ Lagway because even though DJ Lagway saw the Miami defense and LSU defense, he has not seen a defense like the Texas Longhorns, and I cannot wait for 2 weeks until we play the Florida Gators. So now, next week, Nick, we'll talk a little bit, dive deep into Florida a little bit more and give our preview of where Texas stands. And we'll go position by position groups, giving ratings so far as we are already a quarter into the season. For the last part of this episode, I wanted to talk about just some of the other games that have been happening in college football yesterday. Give me your overall thoughts about the day and the games that you were paying attention to.
I mean, there was a lot. I mean, first of all, let's start with, we keep talking about Florida, because that's going to be an opponent in a couple of weeks, and that's the SEC star. Florida's so interesting to me. I mean, I think they do have a really good defense, and that might be something that struggles with. But they hung around in that game, and there was a point where it looked like they had an opportunity to even win that game. They're down 13-0. They score a touchdown. It's 13-7. Like they're in it. And then again, Lagway just couldn't do enough to score. And ultimately they lose 26-7. But that game is really a lot closer than it actually seems. The other one, and that's the more controversial one, is that Oklahoma-Auburn game, where we actually watched some of that together, most of that together. And there's some controversial. I mean, the refs. I mean, I hate to get into that referee game, and it's not just being Texas fans, but both sides were brutal calls going both ways that really affected the end of the game. Oklahoma obviously ends up winning that game 24-17, but you have the miss. I don't even know what it was. I mean, the kicker for Auburn just completely muffs that opportunity, goes down. Oklahoma has a great field position. At that point in the game is 3-3, so it's tight. And then Oklahoma scores a touchdown, but that play that they scored a touchdown is very controversial, right? Oklahoma's seemingly subbing a guy out, but they're faking everybody out, and so he ends up being wide open. Looks like a busted coverage. They don't call it. The announcers are all over it, but obviously it's too late, so they go up 10-3. And then at the flip side of that, at the end of the game, while Auburn's trying to take the lead, which they end up doing, but there was pass interference that wasn't called over and over and over again. Eventually they get one, but just couldn't get it done. And I think there was several plays that did not go Auburn's way. There was the fumble that was clearly a fumble to me. He had a football move, ball pops out, Auburn takes it to the house. That's a 14-point swing. Mm-hmm. So I think Auburn looked like the better team to me. I still think John Mateer is really, really good, but Auburn's defense really contained him for the most part. I think, Michigan contained him for the most part. So it's going to be interesting to see what we get out of John Mateer when we play Oklahoma in a few weeks. I think that's going to be amazing. I think that's going to be cinema. But yeah, that game certainly stood out to me. And then there's others as well. Like Memphis and Arkansas, Tulsa and Oklahoma State earlier this weekend. But I think Auburn got screwed a little bit there, and maybe they end up losing either way. But there's a couple touchdowns that should have been on Auburn's scoreboard.
They should have. And Oklahoma's vaunted defense was struggling to even stop Auburn. Like their running back Cobb was amazing. They could not stop Cam Coleman. The only way they could stop him was Nick Saban,
by holding him, tackling him.
By holding him. And you could see his jersey was almost red. Like his entire jersey.
He looked like a Sooner by the end of the game.
He did. So shout out to Cam Coleman and Auburn, though. They got to bounce back because they play Texas A&M next weekend. But Oklahoma's going to continue to get overhyped, in my opinion. There's most likely going to be a top 10 matchup when they play Texas and Dallas.
Probably, yeah.
But that was an interesting game. And also, what about Indiana destroying Illinois? I actually thought Illinois was they're not going to win the Big Ten, obviously, with Ohio State and Oregon, but I thought they could make the playoff.
Yeah.
And I like
Big Ten team. Yeah.
I liked Luke Altmaier. I thought he was a good quarterback. I didn't get to watch the game. I got to go back and watch, but they got annihilated by Indiana. And Indiana's playing really pissed off because they felt like they got disrespected last year, and then they got destroyed in that playoff game against Notre Dame. So maybe Indiana's playing with a chip on their shoulder. And I actually think they upgraded at quarterback with Fernando Mendoza, who came from Cal, compared to Curtis Rourke, who was there last year. So, and Elijah Surratt, their wide receiver, is completely a beast. Most underrated wide receiver in the country, in my opinion, Indiana's wide receiver. So that was a very interesting game. And there was a lot of interesting action yesterday. Like, what about Utah at home getting annihilated by Texas Tech? Texas Tech, who's known for offense, well, now I hate this. They're kind of a defensive team now. Like, after they got all those players in the transfer portal, Big 12 is kind of turning into a defensive conference. Like, what is happening in 2025 where Big 12 is known for defense? Like, this is crazy.
Yeah, I know. You wouldn't even think that, like, even just when we were in the Big 12 with yours and playing Oklahoma State in the Big 12 title game. But, yeah, it certainly has changed. What about even Clemson? I mean,
I was going to get to them. They're 1-3. They are out of the playoffs. And Dabo Swinney, who's he going to blame now? Is he actually going to get fired now? So
I don't know. I mean, it's a messy situation because you could argue that they could be 0-4. Like they played very bad against Troy and kind of got lucky to come back in that game as well. So that's a pretty good Troy program. I'm not going to dismiss them, but they were up 16-0 on Clemson at home. Clemson's home, and they end up coming back and win by a touchdown or so. So obviously they lose to Georgia Tech, they lose to Syracuse, they lose to LSU. The L's are starting to pile up here. I mean, what can he do to salvage this season at this point?
And he's a little bit showing insecurity by talking about his resume, And I'm like, okay, Dabo,
yourself.
Like, you don't need to tell us how great you are. We know you're a good coach. And it just shows. I think he's feeling some of the pressure because he's not really gone into the transfer portal. They had a great team with Cade Klubnik last year. I joked with Nick yesterday. We spent some time hanging out yesterday evening. I think Cade Klubnik left his game in Austin. I think that Cade Klubnik is still there in Austin last December. So that was a very interesting result. What about Missouri beating South Carolina? Maybe Missouri is one of the most underrated teams so far in the SEC. Them in Tennessee. We'll see. Yeah. What about Michigan? Michigan beating Nebraska. Nick, what do you think about Bryce Underwood? People were already saying that he stinks, and I know Nick was getting on a mini rant about that. He made some big throws yesterday.
He did. Again, he's played 4 games, right? How many games have they played? 4?
Yeah.
4, yeah. So yeah, I think that's obviously crazy. Like you can't. They did the same thing to Arch. They did the same thing to Lagway, and Lagway's had his struggles. No, I don't. I mean, are they even in the game without Underwood? So that's the whole question there. No, it's a crazy. I think we talked about it yesterday when we were hanging out. To me, there is no dominant team in the SEC, right? I would think if I had to bet money on it, I feel really good about Georgia being there, but their defense does not look the same. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Bama, they got smoked by Florida State, but they played a lot better since then. So
yeah.
Is that because Florida State is that good? What's Alabama? Vanderbilt, maybe the most underrated team in the nation right now.
Yeah.
Could they sneak their way in? A&M, Oklahoma. It's so I think it's all matchups. It's kind of like the NFL, where I think there's less of a gap as there used to be. It used to be like Florida, Georgia, Alabama, and then everybody else in the SEC. And now it's kind of like Georgia, Texas, everyone else is we're all about the same pretty much. And I think a big part of that is NIL. A big part of that is the transfer portal. People can go wherever they want to. And I think that is changing. I think they just made a rule where that's changing, where you can only transfer once. Mm-hmm. But still, like, there's a million teams that I could go, yeah, I could see a scenario like Missouri could get in there. I could see Texas getting in there. There's certain teams that have played themselves out just because of bad play, like Florida. But like Florida's had a really tough schedule. Like, you tell me they make a couple stops, maybe they beat LSU. Like, if Lively doesn't throw 5 interceptions, they might win that game. So like, how good is LSU? We have to have that conversation. So to me, there's no elite team that I can really trust other than Georgia. And I don't even know if I trust Georgia. It's just because they've been there and done it with Kirby. I certainly think Tennessee could do it. They should have won that game against Georgia. So
they're in my favor right now. If
they would, the only reason why they win is because they lost, and maybe that's harsh, but you lost the game that you should have won. And Georgia's only getting it better, so a rematch would be kind of tough. But I don't know. It's a crapshoot. Bama goes to Athens this upcoming week. If they beat Georgia, which would be insane. Because Georgia seems to beat everybody, but they have struggled with Alabama. And so even with Kalen DeBoer, so college football now with NIL, with the transfer, there doesn't seem like, oh, Oregon is obviously number one or the Buckeyes are obviously number one. It's so tight, and one running back can make all the difference in the world. And it's showing, and it's awesome. It is awesome.
It really is. Look at Missouri. They got that Ahmad Hardy guy from and look at him, he's dominating. So Missouri is also an underrated team. Vanderbilt, South Carolina, who had a lot of hype. The North Sellers gets hurt. I don't know now what the direction of that.
Right? Are they bad? Like, are they? Exactly. What are they? No one knows.
Exactly. What about Arizona State and Baylor? That was a good game yesterday, 27-24. And I think Stan Levitt has had a little bit of slow start to the season since we played, Arizona State last year in Atlanta. What about San Diego State beating Cal 34-0? Cal was getting a lot of hype because that freshman quarterback, JSK, and Cal starts the year 3-0. They completely get destroyed. It's wide open. Very excited for the rest of the season. Well, thank you so much for watching this episode of Touchdown Texas. Be sure to follow us on our social media channels at touchdown_Texas and like and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Me and Nick next week are going to dive into the Florida Gators, previewing that game as Texas has a bye week next week and they play Florida October 4th. We're actually going to get back to game picks as well. We did that the first couple of episodes of the season. We're going to pick some select games and we're going to be picking that as we have a little competition going on to see who has been more accurate in picking games. And then going forward, we're also going to have TikTok lives before each Texas game, at halftime, and after the game. So thank you so much for watching this episode. Texas is back on track, ladies and gentlemen. We hope you enjoy this bye week, but we'll see you next week. And